Hello, Wake Up New Zealand, Karaseki here. I've been doing some research on the IPCC, UN agency for Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And I have found a lot of controversy, real scientists complaining, etc., and many reports on the IPCC data and the so-called evidence they are giving out that governments, policymakers are actually taking on board as factual evidence and changing policies, bringing out regulations, etc., to control people, which has become a real cash cow for corporations worldwide. And it's called multi-stakeholder corporations, and this is partly to do with, hugely to do with the UN and the WEF partnership that they signed on the 13th of June 2019. So that is to accelerate UN Agenda 2030, where Agenda 21 had failed. So June the 12th, 1996, Wall Street Journal reported that last week the IPCC UN they were regarded as the best source of scientific knowledge on climate change, on the Earth's climate, released a Science of Climate Change 1995 report, the first one they'd done in 5 years. And this was said to be an authoritative statement on global warming that policymakers and the press embraced worldwide, the critical decisions on energy policy that would be an enormous impact on, at the time, US oil and gas prices and on the international community. So it affected the economy worldwide. So the IPCC report had been highly regarded because it had been peer-reviewed, as they all are, discussed, modified, and even remodified by so-called international experts. However, this report was not what it seemed to be, and there was many complaints around this by proved contributing scientists, and they said that prior to the report, they had given contributing information to IPCC to be published. They had not published it. What they had done is altered it, amended it, and it was not what they had on their title page for the final publication. So this was found to be very disturbing, the corruption of a peer-reviewed process, and an expert of 60 years as a member of American scientific community, a president of the National Academy of Scientists. He complained, and he wrote in the Wall Street Journal, "I have never witnessed a more disturbing corruption of peer-reviewed process that the events that led up to the IPCC report," the one that I'm naming right now. So the key changes were made after scientists had met and accepted what they thought was a final peer review report for the IPCC publication of 1995. But IPCC rules and regulations say that they must not actually change what those scientists have contributed to the final IPCC report publication. But the Science of Climate Change in Madrid, this is where it went to and then was accepted by Rome. But what had happened prior to the publication and the peer review of these scientists, IPCC panel had actually changed that end report. So more than 15 sections in Chapter 8 of the report, the key chapter setting out scientific evidence for and against human influence over climate change was changed, deleted, after scientists charged with examining this question had accepted the supposedly final text. They thought it would be the final text to go out to Madrid and to Rome. But there were changes, and these weren't just cosmetic changes. They removed any skepticism which scientists regarded claims that human activities are having a major impact on climate in general and on global warming in particular. So anything that was against their narrative that the scientists that actually reported, they removed it or changed it. So the following passages, for example, included in the approved report by these scientists, that was peer-reviewed before it was published, none of the studies cited above have shown clear evidence that we can attribute the observed climate changes to the specific cause of increased greenhouse gases. So they're saying that greenhouse gases do not cause the climate change. And they're saying no study to date positively attributes to all or part of climate change observed to date to man-made causes. So man-made causes are not attributed to climate change. They can't find evidence of that. So that climate change is likely to remain a controversial matter until uncertainties in the total natural variability of the climate system is reduced. So it's reported that the reviewing scientists used this original language so that the public could understand it worldwide and it would keep IPCC honest. IPCC reports are called the consensus view. If they lead to carbon taxes, restraints on economic growth, they will have a major and almost certain destructive impact on economies of the world. And this is what's happening. There's no doubt there is deception and corruption to deceive policymakers and the public into believing that scientific evidence that shows human activities are causing global warming. There is evidential concern as to the IPCC process, UN, as to the scientific evidence as to global warming. So we're talking about predictions and modified data, etc., etc. So the Wall Street Journal, 11th of July, 1996, entitled Cover Up in the Greenhouse, author Dr. Seuss, former president of the US National Academy of Scientists, revealed that an unsponsored scientific report promoted global warming has been tampered with for political purposes. IPCC had tampered it with that report for political purposes, had changed what scientists had said. So the IPCC officials actually protested and said that they did nothing to change its emphasis, and said that such unannounced change of an approved draft do not violate the rules of transparency and open review. So they admit that they did change it. However, the evidence is there, and IPCC officials quoted, and they didn't name themselves, by Nature article. The reasons for revisions to the chapter was to ensure that it conformed to policymakers' summary of the full report. The response to that from the scientific community of experts should not a summary conform to the underlying scientific report rather than vice versa? So, in other words, they did exactly what they're being accused of. The Wall Street Journal article pointed out that the IPCC summary itself is a political document. is economical with the truth, has problems with selective presentations of facts. It's totally ignored global temperature data gathered by the weather satellites because they contradict the result of the climate modelling used to predict future global warming. So IPCC provided what they called a scientific cover for political action, misusing respected scientists who never made extravagant claims about future warming. So those scientists did not make a claim that humans caused climate change or global warming. So that was against IPCC-UN, so they changed it. The IPCC-UN changed it. So politicians and activists strive for international controls on energy use, which was discussed in Geneva, where parties to the Global Climate Treaty convened. Those are anxious to stipulate that science is settled, trying to marginalise the growing number of scientific critics. They've been trying to stop them from speaking out. So if they speak out, their character assassinated. So it was reported that the IPCC report on global climate change had been scientifically cleansed. The author of the article in the Wall Street Journal in 1996 was S. Fred Singer, president of the Science and Environmental Policy Project. IPCC report that science is settled. It is the nature of science that it is never settled. You will have heard that 97% of scientists believe humans cause catastrophic global warming, requiring government action to reduce CO2 in the atmosphere. This comes from a survey climate-related scientific study, the results being oversimplified. Many scientists whose papers were cited in the study have questioned its conclusions, suggesting that their papers were incorrectly interpreted, even accusing the author of cherry-picking studies to fit the global agenda. A UN senior official speculated that the world would be underwater by year 2000. Misleading figures and stats data continue to be peddled to this day, and government leaders shut down any public debates. This is called an anti-scientific political tactic. The activism of the mainstream media that influences populations' mindsets by using scare tactics. That the science is settled and nothing can change. We're being led to climate doom and gloom. So the New York Times reported on the 10th of December 2015 an article, "How can climate science be settled when computer models do not take into account all the variables, yet the media keeps saying that climate change is settled? Science is never settled. Politicians and environmental activists and advocacy groups say that the climate is settled." Beehive, 6th of December 2022. Speaker in the House was Dr. Ayesha Verrill on research, science and innovation as she focused on the future-focused science system tackling New Zealand's big challenges on climate change. She referred to shifting from a system with multiple small entities and strategies focusing on efforts on nationally significant priorities around climate change, targeting the farmers and throwing them under their tractors. Ultimately, researchers and scientists, industry, government, and iwi focusing on sustained investment in new technologies and industries embedded with Tiriti or Waitangi, being more responsive, iwi married to improve wealth and resilience in their community. This is what is reported in the Beehive as to climate change tactics, innovations, investments for Indigenous. 2nd of December 2020, New Zealand Parliament, Climate Change Declaration of Emergency, references the IPCC report, reducing the impact of human activity on the climate. They want to reduce your activity because of the climate doom and gloom, calling this an emergency. Joining 1,800 jurisdictions in 32 countries to declare a climate emergency. Seize the opportunity, the window of opportunity. The clean green reputation provides includes the decline in Indigenous biodiversity. Be carbon neutral, a carbon neutral government by 2025. The UN IPCC Declaration of Global Responsibility, a catalyst for change. A carbon neutral program. ACT Party, Simon Court, Speaker in Parliament, stated that the climate emergency is simply a triumph of politics over practical solutions. He said he knows that human activity has a significant impact on climate and the environment. ACT declared that climate emergency was nothing but a stunt, referring to stop flying MPs all over the country whenever they like, wherever they like, as MPs are the people in the world with an unlimited travel budget to fly anywhere they like, whenever they want, at taxpayers' expense. However, ACT went on to say they believe that the innovation-led business, engineers, scientists, not through slogans and PR stunts, are to be embraced. But James Shaw embraced Fridays for climate strikes, school strikes for climate. Nicola Willis, National Party, said that the climate emergency declaration will have no measurable impact on global climate change, and the opposition knows it. It won't take a single car off the road. It won't reduce the methane from a single cow, nor remove a single tonne of carbon dioxide in the air. And that the motion before us employs all the implied drama of the word emergency, but it does so with zero practical effect. It is unfortunately yet another collection of words in place of the sincere policy and concerted action, she said. And that New Zealand must take to drive down our emissions. I am very firmly of the view that climate change threatens our world and our community, that the production of greenhouse gas emissions by people is its cause, that New Zealand must act to reduce our emissions, and of course that Parliament has a sole responsibility to take steps to achieve that. Of course, the National Party is on board with a global mission to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So we've got Auckland Council also with their future fit measuring carbon footprints also, and that's got into the schools as well, and they are pushing plant-based foods. So now we have Debbie Nari Packer, leader of the Maori Party, referring to in Parliament as to the climate emergency declaration, as to protecting Mother Earth, Goddess Gaia, and Father Sky, and a multitude of descendants, tribes and sub-tribes that descended from the gods through to the Treaty of Waitangi, thus supporting the motion of global climate change. In 2018, the IPCC released a landmark report that says there's only 12 years left to limit climate catastrophe. Science is settled, Packer said, as she spoke about $300 million fund, $300 million fund to support Maori farmers to transition to regenerative agricultural methods. Note the London School of Economics and Political Science reported 7th of February 2018 to the report that Debbie Packer refers to and embraces of the IPCC, more flaws in estimates of the economic impacts of climate change. It's fundamentally misleading and contains apparent mistakes. A Professor Toy was a coordinating lead author of the IPCC report in 2014. Criticism of Toy stated he attempted to estimate the best fit line. Several outside reviewers involved in the process expressed concerns that the estimates were not meaningful. Toy, The Economic Impacts of Climate Change, published 12th of January 2018 by the Review of Environmental Economics and Policy, provided an update to the survey in the published IPCC report. It was found in that report of 2018 that Debbie Packer embraced that 27 estimates from 22 studies listed in the 2018 IPCC report concluded that the welfare impacts of the initial warming are positive. However, upon examination, it was revealed the finding was unsound based on outweighing of a single outlying study, that the report was based on a study from 15 years earlier, that it had sloppy errors like other of Professor Toy's previous paper. Now, Professor Toy was a lead author of IPCC reports. So this report that Debbie Packer actually refers to and she embraces spoke about $300 million to go to Indigenous farmers, not to help other farmers. How many Indigenous farmers are there, by the way? So here we have it, apartheid in New Zealand, as the government targets other New Zealand farmers to throw them under their tractor. And this is what it's all about. This is about a cash cow. This is what it's about political tactics, corrupt IPCC reports, UN, a corporate capture, lies and corruptions that this whole government, every political party have jumped on board with. This will be the destruction of the economy. Wake up, New Zealand.